Welcome back and happy Tuesday. Another great week. We're going to be talking about the intersection of innovation and culture. Big topic, lots of ways we can go about it. I am so happy that I have William Crowder here, who is the managing partner at Aperture VC, a man that I have known for a number of years through many versions of life, from entrepreneur and beyond. William, someone who I've always respected. So happy to have you here today to talk about quite a topic. So thanks for joining us.
Indeed. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so the intersection of innovation and culture. You've played, the role of VC from so many different lenses, but let's put the financial lens for a second because that's the world that we're both playing in now. What does this mean? Big topic, big ideas. What does it look like for you?
Yeah. When we talk about the intersection of innovation and culture, I think that everyone really gets excited about all the new things that people are doing with technology, and they kind of lose the other aspect of that, which is who is it for, and who's driving it. And what we're seeing now with the changes in demographics, in particular in the U.S. and really globally, is that more and more people of color matter, women matter, people from different backgrounds matter. And they matter not just from the standpoint of being the target end user and consumer, but also as being the producer. And so I think that what we're now starting to see is this collision, if you will, between what innovation really is and what's the important type of innovation, the impactful innovation, and how does that intersect with what we're seeing on the ground, which is the evolution of our demographics, of our culture, of the trends that really matter to people. And we're starting to kind of see what that manifestation is, and it's being reflected in the markets, it's being reflected in the new ideas and the new companies that are being started.
Yeah, we've seen now for a number of years any XYZ company going public and getting a lot of public backlash. Speaking of going public backlash for not having any diverse representation on boards, on diverse representation on executive team. And there's a lot of ways that you can slice and dice that. But as you said, especially for some of these companies that have such a broad demographic that is their primary clients, and not to have that reflected in the team seems like a big disadvantage. So when we think about what this concept, how are we materializing that? What does that look like in practice when we talk about, the intersection of innovation and culture? What does good look like? What does that look like today
Yeah.
that from your you've been seeing?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I think that the world, in many ways, certainly in the U.S., has had to confront these issues, head on over the last couple of years. What we saw in the streets in 2020 made its way into the corporate boardroom, and people said, "Hey, why is everyone so upset in this neighborhood and that neighborhood?" And it's like, well, hey, actually, your own employees are upset, your customers are upset, and they're expecting some type of change in behavior. And so, what started with, the visible reaction in the streets of Minneapolis and all across the country and all across the world made its way into corporate America. And corporate America's response was, hey, we got to do better. And some of them meant it, some of them didn't. But they had to kind of make some decisions about whether or not they're going to sit on the sidelines or try to find a way to engage in this conversation and ideally be part of the resolution. And so you now see corporations coming to the table and saying, hey, we want to be an investor in the community. We want to be an investor in the entrepreneurs that represent these segments of the population. We want to do something different from the way that we've behaved in the past. And some of them have used the usual playbook. Hey, we're going to be more diverse. We're going to be nicer. We're sorry. But I think that what they're finding out is that more and more is not enough. I think that people are demanding a different level of engagement and a higher level of performance from the companies. And ironically, I think the companies are now starting to figure out that, we can actually make a lot of money doing it the right way. And so we'll see. But I think that there are a lot of different ways to attack the problem and the challenges. But probably the fundamental thing that people can do within their corporations, in particular corporations, is listen. Like for a change, actually listen to what your employees are telling you, what your customers are telling you, what the market is saying. Actually just shut up and listen for a change.
Yeah, it's what as you were saying that, I went back to in Amsterdam this year. We did a closed door AMA style, Ask Me Anything style Amsterdam for Money 2020 for the
Mhm.
audience for clarity. With Julia Hoggett, who is the first openly gay. She's the CEO of the London Stock Exchange.
Hmm.
And she sat with Billy Simmons, co-founder of Daylight, and they had this conversation. And one piece that really stuck out to me was around, she talked about like diversity and inclusion. And so they were talking about the makeup of how diverse London Stock Exchange was. And she said, we're actually more inclusive than that diverse. And she said, plenty of people focus on being diverse first, which is fine, but then they miss the inclusion piece of it to make sure, which is what you just said at the end about like, listen, actually have those
Yeah.
conversations, because you can bring in all these people, but if they're just there and they're not part of the conversation, they're not part of that movement to change things, there really isn't that same momentum to move forward. So I thought that was a really interesting distinction that she highlighted.
Yeah.
So if we think about what you just said, William, in terms of the concept of, this starts with the change in behavior. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What's next? When this idea of the intersection of innovation culture is operating effectively and we're like, yeah, we're there, what does that look like?
Well, I think that, the interesting thing about it is that when we get to the point where so at Aperture we talk about normalizing things that are not normal today, right? Like the things that everyone says is an outlier or whatever, however they want to describe it as not being normal, it should be the normal behavior. We should have diverse managers like myself, managing our own funds and making our own investment decisions and seeing success and seeing that multiplied several times over. Like, why on earth hasn't that happened before? And then why then should it be unusual to see someone who looks like me in that position? It shouldn't be. It should just be typical. It shouldn't be anything. It shouldn't be newsworthy that Scarlett has taken a company public and she's the first woman to take it. No, just she took a company public, and how wonderful is that? So I think that that's what we're all, really striving for and looking for. And I think when I talk about people, needing to listen, we've been saying this forever. It's just that it took a pandemic and a whole bunch of other nonsense to get people to stop, look, and listen, basically. And so, I think that financial inclusion is one area that we really focus on, which is where's that intersection between financial innovation and culture, and how do you build the next wave of fintech companies that actually recognize that, you know the average wealth of a black family is just literally minuscule in comparison to that of a white family in the US. And how do you deal with income inequality and things of that nature? How do you deal with economic mobility? All those things are ripe for opportunity for financial inclusion, financial innovation, to be the reason why those things are no longer an issue or a challenge. And so that's where we're investing, and that's where we're focused. And so I think that, eventually all this stuff will be happening, and you and I won't have this conversation about what is the impact of innovation culture. It'll just be life, and ideally it'll be better. So hopefully that's where we end up one day.
I love it. Great vision. So many. We've got a lot of big things to get to make that happen, but we are on our way. So very much
Indeed.
appreciate it. Thank you for your time, William. For all of you, as always, please read the full Q&A below. You'll get a ton of insights of William's background, how we can do some of this in action, what that looks like, what Aperture is up to, the type of companies they're investing in. And until always, see you next time.
Thank you.